Now for our roundtable with Mariano Mancuso, a Republican political strategist, and News Channel 5 political analyst Brian Crowley. So thanks so much for coming in. Let's first start with the overall impressions on the debate, the winners, the losers, everything else.
Yeah, I think the biggest winner out of that debate was the opioid epidemic. You know, it's something that's ravaging our nation, and we've seen 3 previous debates and we haven't even talked about it. And so we got to see on Tuesday night that it came main stage. But in terms of candidates, I would say Elizabeth Warren won when she came out talking about breaking up big tech, definitely.
You know, I frankly, as I watched the debate, I wasn't terribly impressed by any of it. It seemed like they were repeating the same things that they had said in the other debates, and partly that's the fault of the questions that are asked. I think that, you know, I think there were a couple of people who stood out more than they did in the past, but frankly, what really matters about the debate are what the people in New Hampshire and Iowa and South Carolina think about the debates, you know, because they're the ones, by the time the primary gets to Florida and the rest of the country, you know, that we'll be lucky if there's 2 or 3 candidates left, which frankly is good news.
So you mentioned people standing out. Who?
Well, you know, it was interesting, you know, in talking, you know, with the folks that were on before, you know, Andrew Yang stood out for the young folks in the Democratic Party, and I found that really interesting because maybe it's an age difference, but for me, Andrew Yang is like, please go away. But the young folks really like him, and I think that's interesting. I don't know that he can get there from there, but I think it's interesting. I think Peter Buttigieg had a really good night. I think Elizabeth Warren had a really good night. I think Biden and Bernie Sanders. I think Bernie Sanders is probably on his way out in the long run. I think that Joe Biden continues to struggle more than he should as a man who, with his depth of experience. I don't think he's turning on the young voters that he needs to turn on as well. So, you know, I think it was a good night for a couple of the people that might, as we get closer to New Hampshire and Iowa, surprise us, like Elizabeth Warren and Peter Buttigieg.
So there is one topic that I know you'll have a lot to say about, and
me?
Right. So you all have a lot to say about everything. That's a good thing. President Trump is coming under criticism for his decision to host the next G7 summit at his Doral resort in Miami. Critics are saying it's a conflict of interest, with foreign governments paying Trump's business to attend the conference. Republicans, such as Governor Ron DeSantis, say it's a good move, and he's looking forward to having Florida hosting world leaders. How do you think this plays politically?
Well, I think that somebody should read the Constitution in the Oval Office, because in Article 1, Section 9 of our Constitution, it says that they cannot accept any gifts from foreign entities, which means that by hosting it at Doral, Trump will have to be paid, or the Trump estate will have to be paid for that by foreign entities, which then in turn could solve as a kickback, which is very problematic. But again, as we are in the inquiry of impeachment, we're proving once again our president believes he's above the Constitution.
Do you think it's going to change, or it'll just go on as
I don't
taking
think
place
he cares enough to make a change.
What do you
you know, one of the interesting things dynamics that I think has happened with Trump is that a number of swings have been taken at him since he took office. Whether they're fair swings or not, I'll let others decide. But he has withered all the storms. He's weathered all the storms. And I think he feels a certain immunity now. And when he went to Dallas last week, I mean, he had these enormous crowds that love him. So I'm not surprised that he picked Doral. He kind of signaled that some weeks ago. And is it wrong? Yes, probably. Should the Congress do something? Yes, they should. Will they? No. So, you know, this is going to go on. And it's, you know, it's interesting because there's clear evidence that when he bought this place for $150 million in 2012, took out a loan from Deutsche Bank for $125 million, and since then, the Doral hasn't done very well financially. So, you know, clearly he's using this to help bolster part of his business holdings, and it's no different than him bringing events to Mar-a-Lago, to his clubs in the north, you know, going to Scotland. I mean, this is what he does. He sees the White House as also being a way of building his business empire.
Another big topic that came up is in Syria, U.S. troops were ordered to pull back from supporting the Kurds. Vice President Pence said a truce has been worked out. Both Republicans and Democrats in the House did pass that resolution condemning the pullout, and House Speaker Pelosi actually walked out of a meeting with President Trump about it. We've all seen this picture and the varying sides on Twitter and all that. What kind of impact do you think this will have on voters, or will it?
I don't know what kind of an impact it'll have in the long term. A lot will depend on the ultimate result of all this, which may take us weeks or months to finally know. I mean, Trump is, I think, sort of cavalierly trying to change the dynamics around the world. So far, I don't think he's met with the success some people think he's met with. Nothing has changed with North Korea. Nothing has yet changed with Iran. You know, thousands of Kurds are going to be killed or maimed because of this action, and these are people who fought with us. I think part of what's happened is when he first took office, he put all these generals around him. He put people around him that had a lot of experience in world affairs, and nearly all of them are gone. I don't know that there's anybody he really listens to who really understands world affairs, and Trump is just going to do what Trump's going to do, and he doesn't care about the consequences. And let me just close by saying, everything he ever talks about, eventually he'll talk about the money involved. Everything for him is about a dollar sign. So even with this, he talked about the money we spent over there, and by golly, we'll save some money now. That's not what world affairs is all about.
I don't know if this will be able to carry into the actual election in 2020. But what I do know is that there have been over 2,000 Kurds that have been misplaced or slaughtered from their homes. And that is a travesty, no matter where you are in this world, no matter what side you fall on politically. And the fact that we, as an American power, allowed that to happen on our watch is extremely problematic and devastating. And I would hope that everybody in Congress, as well as the White House, will take a pause and say, you know what, next time we shouldn't allow this. We shouldn't have allowed it the first time, but even more so going forward, this has actually marred not only our history, but our ability to be effective on the world stage.
So you don't think it's necessarily an election issue per se, but it's a world issue?
I have difficulty with over 2,000 people losing their lives making this an election issue.
Right. Okay. Thank you both. We'll be back in just a moment.